Should you buy Dishonored 2 in 2021? Dishonored 2 released back in November of 2016. Holy, it's been that long? Dishonored 2 set out to be bigger and better than the original Dishonored back in 2012, but the question is quite simply, is Dishonored 2 worth your time in 2021? We'll be talking narrative and gameplay. Welcome to Classic Game Reviews, where we go back in time and take a look at the games of the past, and today's game is Dishonored 2. One last thing, if you enjoy this content and want to support the channel, smash that like button, and if you do want to stick around, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for the support. Dishonored 2's narrative is conflicting for me. Dishonored was never really about the narrative, but as I mentioned in my Dishonored video, the original game was quite political. Dishonored varied from revenge to political movements and assassinations, and was less about avenging the empress's death, but more about the various people and the movements that made her death almost inevitable. Dishonored 2 ditches those themes and decides to go down a more narrow route, landing on a purely revenge-focused narrative. The plot is simple, yet effective. The narrative does exactly what it needs to do, with a few flaws here and there. The new villain, Delilah, doesn't get a lot of screen time and honestly is not fleshed out at all. She appears at the start of the game and then appears again at the end, so if you really want a deep story with a great antagonist, this game will not be for you. However, Dishonored 2 was supposed to be bigger and better, and in terms of narrative, Dishonored 2 is absolutely bigger. While the narrative is much simpler than the original Dishonored, that doesn't mean it's smaller. Fast and Furious films have awful plots, but they are still massive movies, and the same can be said for Dishonored 2. The narrative takes you on a journey through a new city called Karnaca, and you get to see all the different gangs and classes of people, with the narrative playing off that fact. Dishonored 2 focuses heavily on the city, and in a sense the city is the deeper side of the story, but that all depends on how you interpret the story. While there is an option to choose between Elizabeth and Corvo, there really is no effect in terms of narrative, and I think that was the right choice because Dishonored 2 has a very tight structure, and I think the tightness would have been sacrificed if the developers went down a separate storyline for both characters. You do get multiple endings, but it's basically, are you a good person or are you a bad person, so it's pretty lackluster. Dishonored 2's narrative lacks the deep themes that were present in the first game, but the themes that are explored in Dishonored 2 are explored thoroughly, so our enjoyment from a narrative sense all depends on how much you care for the themes that are presented throughout the story. But let's be honest, you do not play Dishonored 2 for the narrative. Let's get into the gameplay, the most important part. Now this is why you play Dishonored 2. If you loved the first game, you will worship Dishonored 2. Everything Dishonored had in terms of gameplay is back, but heavily improved with even more variety and open design. As I said in my first video on the original Dishonored, the same can be said here. Dishonored 2 is Hitman with superpowers, but this time it's even better and more gorgeous than ever before. I'm not joking when I say the amount of creativity you have in Dishonored 2 is absolutely insane. You have new powers, new animations, new mechanics, and even more freedom. You can choose between Corvo or Emily, and most people pick Emily because she offers new powers and a fresh new protagonist, and her powers are awesome. There's too many powers to go super in depth in this video, so you aren't sat here for 3 hours. The combat is more fluid, and I would honestly say it's perfected in this game. The animations are brutal and work well, the powers are all useful in any situation, and the combination of those powers are simply a spectacle and feels terrific when you wipe out a whole squad with 3 different powers. There is an awesome mission where you can mess with timelines, and is on par or better than Titanfall 2's mission with time travel. I love mechanics like that, and I especially love the fact that those moments are fleeting and only happen once in each game. It makes those missions memorable, and it will be stuck in your head anytime another game attempts a similar mechanic. The morality system is more of the same, unfortunately. It's weird that the developers focused so heavily on making Dishonored 2 bigger and better, yet forgot one of the most vital mechanics to keep players replaying. The morality system really doesn't have any major effects, and even less so compared to the original. There is no rat plague to show how your actions have affected the city of Karnaca, so it's a throwaway mechanic essentially, which sucks. The targets you're set on as well are nowhere near as interesting as the targets from the previous Dishonored, so Dishonored 2 heavily relies on its game design rather than your motivations to wipe a character out. However, once again, Dishonored 2 is contradicting itself within its design because the areas in which you actually assassinate or non-lethally take out a target seem to be far too easy this time. In the original Dishonored, if you wanted a really cool end to a target, you really had to earn it. But here in Dishonored 2, it's far too easy in my opinion, but I did play on normal difficulty, so I'm a casual scrub I guess. All in all, Dishonored 2 is a fantastic game that blows the first game out of the water in terms of gameplay design, but lacks the narrative push that would have made it a flawless improvement over the original Dishonored. Dishonored 2 unfortunately just scrapes the seal of improvement, but Dishonored 2 is still an absolute classic. Thank you for watching.